There is something that every human being on this earth shares. Rich or poor, young or old, powerful or forgotten, every single one of us will die, not as a distant, abstract possibility, but as a certainty, the only certainty life ever offers. And yet, most of us spend our entire lives looking away from this truth. We bury it. We distract ourselves from it. We act as though if we never think about death, it will somehow not apply to us. The Stoics thought this was one of the greatest mistakes a person could make. Not because thinking about death is morbid, but because avoiding the thought of death is what robs us of our life. 2,000 years ago, Roman generals returning from victory would ride through the streets of Rome in a triumphal procession. Crowds would cheer. Citizens would throw flowers. The whole city would celebrate. And standing just behind the general, whispering in his ear, was a slave, whispering the same 3 words over and over again. Memento mori, remember you will die, not as a curse, not as a threat, but as the most important reminder a person in the height of glory could receive. Welcome to Day 8. Today, we explore the ancient Stoic practice of memento mori, and why remembering death might be the most life-giving thing you ever do. Take a breath, open your mind, and let's begin. The thing we refuse to see, let me ask you something. When did you last truly think about the fact that you will die, not in a panicked way, not in grief after a loss, but quietly? Honestly, with full awareness, I will die. This life, this specific, unrepeatable life will end. If you are like most people, the honest answer is rarely or never. And this is strange when you think about it, because death is not rare. It is the most common thing in the universe. Everything that lives dies. Every flower, every star, every civilization, every person you have ever loved. And yet we treat it as unspeakable, as if acknowledging it will somehow invite it sooner. The Stoics found this deeply irrational. Seneca, the great Roman philosopher and statesman, wrote with sharp clarity on this subject. He said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Postpone nothing." How different would your day look today if you truly believed, not intellectually, but in your bones, that it might be your last? Would you speak more kindly to the people you love? Would you waste less time on things that don't matter? Would you finally begin the thing you have been delaying for months? Seneca believed the answer was yes, profoundly yes, and he went further. He wrote, "It is not that I am brave, but that I know what is not worth fearing." Death to the Stoics was not the enemy. Unlived life was the enemy. The real tragedy was not dying. The real tragedy was reaching the end of your life and realizing that you had never truly lived it, that you had spent your days distracted, postponing, half-present, waiting for some future moment that never came. That was what the Stoics feared, and memento mori was their antidote. Marcus and the meditation on death of all the Stoic philosophers, no one wrote about death more honestly or more beautifully than Marcus Aurelius. Remember who this man was. He was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful person in the known world. He had palaces, armies, wealth beyond imagination. And yet in his private journal, written only for himself, he returned again and again to one theme: the brevity of life, the certainty of death, the question of how to live well in the time that remains. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Read that again. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This was not depression. This was not nihilism. This was clarity. Because Marcus Aurelius understood something that most people spend their whole lives missing. The awareness of death is not the opposite of living well. It is the foundation of it. When you truly accept that your time is limited, not someday, but now, today, something shifts. The trivial things stop feeling so urgent. The important things stop feeling so easily postponable. The people you love stop being taken for granted. The moment you are in this one, right now, stops being something to rush through on the way to somewhere else. Marcus also wrote, "How many a Fabius, Scipio, Cato, and before them, how many a brilliant mind have faded away into dust." He was reminding himself, and us, that even the greatest, most celebrated people who ever lived are now forgotten, turned to dust. And what replaced the anxiety this could have caused? Humility, presence, gratitude, because if even the greatest are forgotten, then the pressure to be impressive dissolves. What remains is simply this: how do I want to spend the time I have been given? That is the gift of memento mori. It strips away everything unimportant and leaves you standing face to face with what matters most. What death teaches us about life. I want to share something with you that I find deeply moving. There was a practice among certain Stoic philosophers of spending time in cemeteries, not out of morbidity, not out of despair, but as a form of meditation. They would walk among the graves and reflect on the lives of those who lay beneath. People who had worried about things that no longer matter. People who had postponed conversations they never got to have. People who had been angry at someone for years and then died before the anger could be released. And from this reflection, they would return to their lives with something precious. Perspective. The perspective that only the awareness of death can give. Epictetus, who had been a slave, who had suffered physical pain and humiliation, said something extraordinary about this. He said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." Death, in this teaching, is the ultimate teacher of acceptance, because there is nothing in this world you can control less than death. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot delay it indefinitely. You cannot buy your way out of it. And so the Stoics used it as a practice ground for the most important skill a human being can develop: the ability to accept what cannot be changed and act wisely within what remains. But memento mori teaches us more than acceptance. It teaches us priorities. Think about the people who have faced death directly, through serious illness, through near accidents, through war. Almost universally, they report the same experience. After the brush with death, the small irritations of life fall away. The traffic jam that used to ruin their morning no longer matters. The criticism from a stranger no longer stings. The missed promotion no longer devastates. And in their place, a profound appreciation for simple things: the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, the feeling of a hand held in theirs. This is what memento mori does when practiced sincerely. It does not darken life. It illuminates it. It is like a candle held up to a dark room. Suddenly you see clearly what is there, what matters, what is worth your finite and precious time. Seneca wrote, "Omnia lucili aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est." Everything, Lucilius, belongs to others. Time alone is ours. Time, that is the only true currency of a human life. And most of us, without the awareness of death, spend it carelessly, as though it were infinite, as though there would always be more. Memento mori whispers, there will not always be more. Spend it wisely. Spend it on what is real. The fear beneath the fear. Now I want to go a layer deeper. Because when most people think about their fear of death, they assume the fear is about the dying itself. The pain, the unknown, the darkness. But the Stoics, in their careful examination of the human soul, identified something else beneath this fear. Something more honest. The fear of death, they believed, is most often the fear of not having lived. Let me explain. When you ask people, truly ask them, what they are afraid of when they think about death, the answers are rarely about pain. They say, "I'm afraid I haven't done what I was meant to do. I'm afraid the people I love don't know how much I love them. I'm afraid I spent too much time on things that didn't matter. I'm afraid I never became who I wanted to be." This is what Bronnie Ware, a palliative care nurse, discovered when she wrote about the regrets of the dying. The number one regret was not, "I wish I had worked harder." It was, "I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca wrote with almost painful directness, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it." He was not describing lazy people or careless people. He was describing all of us, educated, well-meaning, thoughtful people who nonetheless let years slip by in a kind of comfortable half-sleep. Saying yes to things that don't matter because we're afraid to say no. Avoiding difficult conversations because we assume there will be time later. Postponing the work that truly calls to us because it feels too risky, too uncertain, too vulnerable. And one day, not dramatically but quietly, the time runs out. This is what memento mori protects against, not by frightening us into frantic action, but by awakening us gently, persistently, to the preciousness of what we have. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live," not as a threat, as an invitation to be here, fully here, in this day, in this conversation, in this moment. Because this moment right now is the only place your life actually exists. Practicing memento mori today. How do we bring memento mori into daily life? Not as a dark obsession, but as a quiet, clarifying companion. Here are 4 Stoic practices, simple, powerful, available to you today. Practice 1, the morning reflection. Before you rise each morning, take 60 seconds. Sit quietly, breathe, and say to yourself, I will not live forever. Today is a gift. What will I do with it that is worthy of that gift? This is not to make you anxious. It is to make you present. Practice 2, the evening gratitude review. Each evening before sleep, bring to mind 3 things from the day that you are genuinely grateful for. Not grand things, small things. A conversation, a meal, a moment of quiet, the fact that you were here for another day. The Stoics believed that gratitude and the awareness of death are deeply connected. Because you cannot truly be grateful for something unless you know it will not last forever. Practice 3, the deathbed question. When you are facing a decision, large or small, ask yourself this. When I am at the end of my life looking back, which choice will I be glad I made? This question has a remarkable power to cut through confusion and fear. Because from that perspective, from the end, the answer is almost always obvious. Choose the relationship over the argument. Choose the courageous act over the safe one. Choose the present moment over the endless preparation for a future that may never come. Practice 4, write your own eulogy. This may sound uncomfortable, do it anyway. Sit down and write honestly what you would want said about you when you are gone. Not your achievements, not your titles. What kind of person were you? How did you make people feel? What did you stand for? What did you give? Then ask yourself, am I living in a way that matches these words? If the answer is yes, continue, deepen it. If the answer is no, then you have just been given the most valuable information you could receive. Because you still have time to change. There is a story, perhaps legend, perhaps true, of Alexander the Great on his deathbed. He had conquered most of the known world. He had led armies across deserts and mountains. He had built an empire that stretched from Greece to India. And as he lay dying, he made a final request. He asked that when his body was carried through the streets, his hands should hang outside the coffin, open, visible to all. Empty. So that everyone could see. The man who had conquered the world left it with nothing in his hands. Memento mori. Not a philosophy of despair, but a philosophy of awakening. The Stoics did not teach us to fear death. They taught us to use the awareness of death as the sharpest, most honest lens through which to see our lives. To ask not someday, but today, am I spending my time on what is real, on what matters, on what I will be glad I chose? Marcus Aurelius wrote his final words to himself, words that were never meant to be published, words spoken in the quiet of his own conscience. And what he wrote, more than anything else, was this: live, truly live, not tomorrow, now. Long pause. You are here today. That is not guaranteed tomorrow. So let this awareness be not a weight, but a pair of wings. Go and live the life that, at its end, you will have been glad you lived. Music swells softly, then slowly fades to silence. Thank you for being here with me today. If this moved something in you, share it. Someone you know may need to hear it. I will see you on day 9. Until then, be present, be grateful, and be well.